Hello, hey, Matt here again. Welcome to section 2 of our guide to BOI reporting. Today we are going to talk about reporting companies. Okay, so this module, this section, extremely important. We're going to go from start to finish, how you can tell if your business is even required to file a BOI report. We keep talking about, hey, there's tens of millions of companies that are required to file, but not all of them are actually required to file. We are going to show you in this section exactly how you can tell if your business is required to file a BOI report right now. So basically, the way that we handle this is it's basically a 3-step process. Number 1, where was your company formed? Okay, was it formed in the US or was it formed in a foreign country? Number 2, is my entity type required to file? There are certain types of entities that are not required to file. We're going to go through that. And then the third thing that you go through is, does my company meet an exemption criteria? Certain industries, certain types of companies are exempt from filing. Okay, and we're going to go through those. Okay, so this right here is a diagram showing exactly the process that we go through to determine if a company is required to file. Okay, so you can navigate through this. Okay, we're also going to take this step by step, show you exactly how we do it. Okay, but if you do not want to go through this entire process, if you just say, hey, just tell me if my company is required to file a BOI report, guess what? You're in luck. You can just use our free tool. Okay, you go to ctaintegrity.com/BOI-quiz. Okay, and you will use our free tool that we developed ourselves. That takes about a minute to complete. You put in your information, asks you a few questions about your business, how it's structured, if you meet one of the exemption criteria, and it'll just spit you back a result and say, yes, you're required, no, you're not. Okay, but we are going to show you exactly how we go through that so that you can make doubly sure. Okay, the first thing, again, is we need to determine, where was the company formed? Was it formed in the United States? Or was it formed in a foreign country, a country outside of the United States of America? Okay. Once we have determined that, if it was formed in the United States, you may be a domestic reporting company. Okay. Now let's go through this. Move my face out of the way. Okay. Number 1, we need to determine, is the company in question a corporation of any kind? Is it an S Corp? Is it a C Corp? Is it any other type of corporation? Number 2, is the company a limited liability company? Okay. If it's not a corporation, is it an LLC? Okay. Or any variation of an LLC, like a PLLC, there's several different types. Okay. If it is not that, okay, if it's not a corporation, if it's not an LLC, was the company created by the filing of a document with the Secretary of State or similar office under a state, okay, or an Indian tribe? Okay, so if the answer to any of these questions is yes, then the company may be a reporting company, meaning that it may be required to file a BOI report. If it is none of these 3, if it's not a corporation, not an LLC, if the entity itself was not created by the filing of a document with the Secretary of State, okay, or an Indian tribe, guess what? You're not required to file a BOI report. Okay. But this one right here, number 3, is super, super important. Okay, so sometimes, depending on the state where you're in, sometimes trusts can fall under that, like unincorporated associations, like HOAs, different things like that, falls under number 3. Okay, so is your company a corporation? Is it a limited liability company, or was the entity created by filing a document with the Secretary of State? Okay, you'll notice that one of the things that you don't see in here is a sole proprietor. Okay, if you operate under your name and your social security number, even if you have a trade name or a DBA, okay, but it's Bob Smith and I operate under my social security number, you're a sole proprietor. The federal government obviously already knows who you are. They know that you're the beneficial owner of that company, of yourself. Okay. So you do not need to file a BOI report. Okay. But if you answer yes to any of these questions, okay, then you may be required to file a BOI report. If the answer is no to all three of these questions, you don't need to file a BOI report. Okay. The next thing is, if your company was formed outside of the United States, okay, is your company, the only question that we have to look at is your company registered to do business in any U.S. state? Okay. If it is, okay, then you need to go on, okay, and see if you meet one of the exemption criteria. If you're not, if you're registered in a foreign country or your business formed in a foreign country, you're not registered to do business in the United States, nothing you need to worry about, okay? So let's move on. Now let's talk about all the exemption criteria. There are 23 different types of exemptions for companies, okay? So these are actually pretty rare. Most of these are industries that already have a lot of finance or a lot of regulatory oversight. The federal government already knows who they are. So when you think back to like what's the core tenet of the Corporate Transparency Act, okay? The federal government already knows who they are, so they're not required to file a BOI report. So certain highly regulated industries not required to file. Certain sizes of companies, and we'll get into more details about that in a future section, but there are certain sizes of companies where you can be classified as a large operating company. Basically, you have to have done in the previous tax year $5 million in revenue and have more than 20 full-time employees and have an operating presence in the United States. Okay, but if you think that you may fall under one of these things, go make sure you look at our section about complex situations and things like that, because we're going to go through these in detail to make sure that that you're actually not required to report. Okay, the last thing that we want to do is have a false negative. Okay, so some of the common misconceptions and misunderstandings is insurance companies. Insurance companies, state licensed insurance producers, public accounting firms, large operating companies, inactive entities, investment company or investment advisor. Those are some of the ones that there's some misconceptions about. We'll go through those in detail. Then you can determine if you are required to file. But if you're one of these things, if you're a tax exempt entity, if you're a nonprofit, you're a 501c, whatever, you're not required to file. Okay. So, and then again, in a future segment, we are going to go through these in more detail. Okay. Okay. If your company is formed in, it's considered to be a reporting company. If your entity kind of matches up with that, you don't meet one of the exemption criteria, then you are required to file a BOI report. Okay. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are required to do it. It is not optional. It is mandatory. Okay. So this is the information that needs to be collected, okay, for the company itself, the full legal name of the company. Okay. If you have any trade names or DBAs, okay, the business address, a physical business address, you cannot put a PO box in here. Okay. It has to be a physical business address. Where was the company formed? What state was it formed in? Okay. For foreign companies, what state are you what U.S. state are you registered in? Okay. And then your employer identification number, also known as an EIN for the company. Okay. You absolutely need that. One thing to know, if you are a single member LLC, okay, you may not, your accountant, your tax advisor, whoever advised you to set up your business, you may not have had to obtain an EIN. You can use a social security number if you are a single member LLC. Okay. I'm going to touch on some reporting company quality assurance. These are some common mistakes, common things that we see. Okay. So number one, verify the legal spelling of the reporting company name and trade name if that's applicable to you. Okay. You want to, you want to get it exactly right, even down to the punctuation. Okay. So is it, ABC company, comma LLC? We want to make sure we have the comma in there. Okay. If you need to verify how to do that, look at your company formation documents, look at your articles of organization or your articles of incorporation or whatever it was. If you can't find that, go to your state's Secretary of State website. You can Google whatever state business entity search, you'll find it from there, and you can do business information like that is public information, and so you can pull up the names of businesses like that. So you can go pull up your own business registration through your own state. You can see exactly how it's spelled. You also need to include, again, any DBAs in there as well. Okay. Your business address, I touched on this before. You cannot have a PO box. Okay, it has to be a physical address. If you work from home, if your principal place of business is out of your home, put your residential address. Okay, if you have a physical location where you principally do business out of, put that address. Okay, it's where you principally perform business out of. Your employer identification number, it is a 9-digit number formatted like this. It's 2 numbers with a dash and 7 more numbers. Okay, if you can't find it, look at a tax return, call your bookkeeper, call your accountant, call your attorney, call whomever. Okay, or worst case scenario, call the IRS. Do not guess. Do not make something up. Okay, this is super important. Let's go to Bob. Bob's happy. Look at him. Look at him. Okay, Bob's Plumbing Services. This is the information required for his company. The legal name of his business is not Bob's Plumbing Services. It's RK Enterprises, LLC. Okay. He has a trade name. Okay. He has a DBA. It's Bob's Plumbing Services. Okay. So he classifies himself as Bob's Plumbing Services, but the actual legal name of the entity is RK Enterprises, LLC. He's formed in Texas. His physical business address is 1231 Astros Avenue in Houston. That's a made-up address. And here's his employer identification number, also a made-up number. But for Bob, because he's a made-up person, made-up business, here is his number. Okay, so that is the information that we would report for Bob's Plumbing Services. That's it.